The ad was specific. Quiet studio apartment, perfect for single tenant. That detail mattered more than anything. I'd just gotten out of a messy breakup and craved silence. The kind of profound, deep silence where you can forget other people even exist. No roommates, no noisy neighbors, just me and four walls. When I met the landlord, he was eager. A little too eager, maybe. He showed me the place at noon, with every light blazing and the blinds wide open. It was clean, minimal, almost sterile. He stood in the doorway as I took it all in, looking over his shoulder as if he was about to run. "There's just one rule," he said, his voice casual, but his eyes weren't. "If you hear something at night, don't go looking for it. It's just the building settling." That should have been a giant, flashing red flag, but the rent was ridiculously cheap, and I was desperate. I signed the lease. The first night was perfect. Absolute, beautiful silence. I slept like a rock. The second night, however, was different. I woke up suddenly at 2:46 a.m. I didn't hear anything, but I had this overwhelming, distinct feeling that someone was standing very close to my bed. Not watching me, just standing, like a soldier waiting for orders. I held my breath, listening, but there was nothing. The feeling wouldn't go away. The air in the room felt heavy, disturbed. I fumbled for my phone and switched on the flashlight, sweeping the beam across the room. Nothing. The room was empty, but my heart was pounding against my ribs. I slept with the light on for the rest of the night. The third night, I heard it. Footsteps, but they weren't coming from the hallway or the apartment above me. They were on the carpet inside my room. Slow, deliberate, heavy steps circling my bed. I lay there, frozen, staring at the dark ceiling, every muscle tensed. I tracked the sound as it moved around me, and then it stopped, right beside my head. I could almost feel the presence there. Then I heard a breath exhale. It wasn't warm, it wasn't cold, it was just neutral, like something was mimicking the act of breathing without understanding it. I screamed. I lunged for the lamp on my nightstand and flicked it on. The room was flooded with light, and again, nothing. No one was there, no sign of movement. But as my eyes adjusted, I saw it. The carpet was flattened in a perfect oval shape right next to my pillow, the size and shape of 2 feet, like someone had been standing there, watching me for a very, very long time. The next morning, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I called the landlord. He didn't sound surprised. He just sighed, a tired, resigned sound, as if he'd had this exact conversation 100 times. "It usually takes a few nights," he said. "You'll get used to it." "I'll get used to what exactly?" I said, my voice cracking. "The room," he replied calmly. "It doesn't like being empty." I let out a nervous, sharp laugh. "That's not funny." "What are you talking about?" His voice dropped, losing all its earlier warmth. "I'm not joking," he said. "That apartment was never meant for just one person. I didn't need to hear another word." I packed a bag and stayed at a friend's place that night, telling her I had a pest problem. I couldn't bring myself to explain the truth. When I came back the next morning, my stomach twisted into a knot. Something was wrong. My things had been moved, not drastically, but subtly, in a way that was almost more terrifying. The chair from my desk was pulled out, angled towards the bed. The shower curtain was damp, even though I hadn't used it. And on the bathroom mirror, there were handprints. Not on the surface, but on the inside of the glass, pressing out. I pulled out my phone, my hands trembling. No missed calls, no messages. But then I checked my sleep tracker app, which I'd left running on my nightstand. It showed movement all night long. A constant pattern of steps, circling the bed, pausing, and always stopping right beside the spot where my head would have been. I had to know. I couldn't just run. I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. That night, I went back, but I didn't plan on sleeping. I set up my laptop camera, pointing it towards the bed, and started recording. Then I left, locking the door behind me, and spent another night on my friend's couch. The next day, I sat down and played back the footage. For hours, nothing happened. The video showed my empty, silent room. Then, at exactly 1:13 a.m., the footage flickered. The room on the screen seemed to darken, and the air itself began to warp, like heat rising off hot pavement in the summer. And then, something appeared. Not a person, not a ghost. It was an outline, a negative space, a human-shaped void where the room should have been. It stepped forward, moving with a strange, fluid certainty. And as it moved, the room reacted to its presence. The bed dipped as if under an invisible weight. The carpet compressed with each silent footstep. The desk chair shifted slightly on its wheels. It knew the layout of the room perfectly. It moved like it owned the place. At 2:46 a.m., the exact time I'd woken up before, it stopped, right beside the bed, right where I would have been sleeping. The shape leaned down, its face hovering just inches from my pillow. I couldn't see a mouth, but my laptop's microphone picked up the sound. A whisper, low, guttural, and chillingly close. It said two sentences that I will never forget. Too much room. You leave too much space. The next morning, I woke up on the floor in a cold sweat, but I wasn't at my friend's house. I was in the apartment. I scrambled to my feet, confused and terrified. The bed was occupied. The sheets were pulled tight, smoothed out perfectly, with a deep indentation in the mattress, as if someone had slept there comfortably all night. I had to get out. I ran to the door and grabbed the handle, twisting and pulling with all my strength. It wouldn't open. It wasn't locked. It just felt heavy, impossibly heavy, as if 100 people were leaning against it from the other side. A cold dread washed over me. Behind me, I felt the air shift. I felt the room move, the presence I'd seen on camera drawing closer, filling the empty space around me. And in that moment, I finally understood. The room wasn't haunted by a ghost. It wasn't possessed. It was designed this way. It was built to hold more than one presence. It needed a companion. And when it didn't have one, it made one for itself. The last thing I remember is feeling a strange, firm pressure along my spine, like invisible hands guiding me backward, settling me gently into the bed, right next to the indentation in the mattress, making sure I fit perfectly. The landlord still posts the ad online. Quiet studio apartment. Perfect for single tenant. And you know what? He's telling the truth. Because after your first night there, you're never, ever alone again. The first time it happened, no one believed me. We were driving back from my aunt's house late at night, rain hammering the windshield hard enough that the wipers couldn't keep up. My dad was tense, hunched forward over the wheel. My mom stared out the passenger window. I was half asleep in the back seat. Then I heard it. Not loud, not sudden. A low, dragging sound that seemed to move alongside the car. I sat up. Did you hear that? My dad flinched slightly. Hear what? That noise, I said. Like something scraping. At that exact moment, lightning split the sky. Thunder followed immediately close, violent, shaking the car. That, my dad said. You heard thunder. I wanted to argue, but the sound was gone. The road stretched empty ahead of us, slick and black, trees bending in the wind. I told myself he was right. The second time was years later. I was living alone then, in a small house at the edge of town where the streetlights stopped and the dark felt heavier. A storm rolled in just after midnight heavy rain, distant lightning. I woke up because the sound was back. That same dragging noise, slow, rhythmic, like something being pulled across wet ground. I lay in bed listening, heart pounding, trying to match it to something reasonable. Wind through branches, loose siding, debris rolling in the street. Then it changed direction. It wasn't coming from outside anymore. It was moving along the side of the house. I grabbed my phone and checked the weather radar. The storm was already passing. The thunder had moved farther away, but the sound was closer, right beneath my bedroom window. I held my breath. The sound stopped. Then came a new one. A soft, wet tap against the glass. I didn't move. Another tap. Not knocking. Testing. My phone buzzed in my hand as a weather alert came through. Severe thunderstorm warning. Until 12:40 a.m., I stared at the words, feeling a wave of relief. There it was. Proof, an explanation. Thunder. Lightning flashed again, illuminating my room for a split second. In that instant, I saw something outside the window. Not clearly, not fully. A shape low to the ground, pressed too close to the glass. Pale where it shouldn't have been pale. Smooth in a way rain couldn't explain. The light vanished. I screamed and scrambled for the lamp. When the room flooded with light, the window was empty. No marks, no cracks, no sign of anything at all. The sound was gone. I didn't sleep. I started noticing it after that. Whenever there was a storm, I listened. Not for thunder, for the dragging. Sometimes I heard it faintly in the distance, sometimes close enough that it felt like it was circling. Always slow, always patient, always during storms. I mentioned it once to a coworker after a rough night. She laughed. "You're sensitive to low-frequency sounds," she said. "Thunder can do weird things to your brain." I wanted to believe her. But then she added, "My grandma used to say you shouldn't go outside during storms. Said it wasn't the rain you needed to worry about." I asked her what she meant. She shrugged. Old superstition stuff. I started researching. Not online forums or ghost stories. Weather studies, acoustics, anything scientific that might explain why the sound felt directed, like it was choosing where to go. That's when I found the article. A brief mention buried in a research paper about auditory misinterpretation during storms. How the brain sometimes assigns shape and intention to low-frequency noise. One line stood out. Subjects often report the sensation of being approached. Approached. The next storm came suddenly. No warning, no alert. I was driving home on a back road when the rain started, heavy and immediate. Lightning flashed so close it turned the world white. And then, there it was, clearer than ever. The dragging sound was coming from behind my car. Keeping pace, my pulse spiked. I sped up. The sound stayed with me. I slowed down. It slowed. Thunder cracked overhead, violent and sharp. And for the first time, I realized something that made my hands go numb on the steering wheel. The dragging sound didn't sync with the thunder. It continued between strikes, uninterrupted, like it wasn't part of the storm at all. Lightning flashed again. This time, I saw it in the rearview mirror, only for a fraction of a second. Something low and stretched across the road, its surface slick and reflective like wet skin, not running, not crawling, being pulled by something I couldn't see. The light vanished. The road behind me was empty. I pulled over, shaking, breath coming too fast. The storm passed within minutes. Silence returned. I sat there for a long time before driving again. Since then, I don't drive during storms. I don't sleep near windows. And when thunder rolls now, I don't flinch at the sound itself. I listen carefully to what comes after, because thunder ends. That other sound doesn't. It just waits for the next storm, waiting for someone to mistake it again. My sister and I grew up in a house that never felt empty. Not haunted, not scary, just occupied. You could walk into a room and feel like you'd interrupted something that had paused politely for you to arrive. Our parents dismissed it as imagination. Old houses creak, air settles, wood remembers pressure. We accepted that. What we didn't accept, what we couldn't explain, was the sound at night. It started when I was 16. A low, irregular noise that came from inside the walls. Not mice, not pipes. Too deliberate for that. It would move slowly, stopping for long stretches, then resumed somewhere else, closer or farther, without any pattern. My sister called it the listener. I laughed at the name until the night I heard it stop outside my bedroom wall. I was lying awake, scrolling on my phone, when the sound halted. No fading, no gradual quiet, just silence. I held still. Minutes passed. Then the sound resumed softer, now right behind the drywall, like something leaning in. I knocked on the wall, heart racing. The sound knocked back. Once, perfectly timed. I didn't sleep that night. Our parents insisted it was nothing. The house had been renovated several times. Maybe there were gaps between walls. Maybe it was wind pressure. But renovations don't explain why the sound reacted. We tested it. One night, my sister whispered into the wall, "Hello?" Complete silence. Then, slowly, the sound traveled along the wall toward her voice. She backed away, pale. "It hears us," she said. That was the first time we told our parents we were scared. They finally agreed to call someone. An inspector came during the day. He tapped walls, crawled through the crawl space, climbed into the attic. He found nothing. No animals. No structural issues, he said. Old houses just make noise. That night, the sound moved freely, louder, confident. We stopped sleeping in our rooms and camped out in the living room. Lights on, TV playing quietly. For a while, it stayed away, until my dad bought a baby monitor. He said it was to prove there was nothing there. He placed one unit in the hallway near our bedrooms and kept the receiver on the coffee table. White noise hissed softly through the speaker. We sat there, all four of us, listening. Nothing happened for almost an hour. Then the static shifted. A faint distortion like interference, and beneath it, breathing, not loud, not close, measured. The monitor crackled as the breathing grew clearer. My mom reached for the volume knob. The breathing stopped instantly. The static returned to normal. My dad laughed nervously. "Feedback," he said. "Radio interference." My sister shook her head. "That was listening too," she whispered. We turned the monitor off. The next morning, the hallway walls were warm. Just one section, as if something behind them had been there for a long time. The house changed after that. Doors didn't stay open. Light bulbs burned out unevenly, one side of a room darker than the other. The sound returned, but only at night, and only when the house was quiet. Always moving, always stopping when noticed. Then my sister disappeared, just for a few hours. She was 13, came home from school, dropped her backpack in the kitchen, and went to her room. My mom called her for dinner later. No answer. Her room was empty, her window locked, her phone still on the bed. We searched the house, panicking. Then we heard it. The sound, fast, moving rapidly through the walls, circling the living room. My mom screamed her name. The sound stopped. There was a long pause. Then my sister walked out of the hallway. She looked confused, pale, like she'd just woken up. "Why is everyone yelling?" she asked. She couldn't remember where she'd been. That night, she slept for 12 hours straight. After that, she changed. Small things. She paused before answering questions. She stood too close when talking. Sometimes she would turn her head slightly, as if listening to something we couldn't hear. Once I caught her whispering toward the wall. "What did you say?" She jumped. Nothing. A week later, my dad installed cameras in the house. Not hidden ones, visible, obvious. The sound retreated. For 3 days, everything was quiet. On the fourth night, the cameras recorded something new. At 2:13 a.m., the hallway camera showed my sister standing outside my parents' bedroom. She wasn't walking. She wasn't moving at all. Just standing there, facing the wall. For 46 minutes. At 2:59, she turned and went back to her room. In the footage, just before she left, the wall bulged slightly, as if something inside had leaned outward. We confronted her the next morning. She didn't deny it. She just frowned. "It gets lonely," she said. My mom cried. My dad took the footage to the police. They watched it carefully, then asked if there were any history of sleep disorders in the family. They suggested counseling, medication, stress. They didn't take the wall seriously. 2 nights later, the power went out. All the lights died at once. A sound returned immediately. Not moving, surrounding, from every wall, from the ceiling, from beneath the floor. The house felt smaller, compressed. My sister stood up slowly. "It's okay," she said calmly. "It doesn't want all of us." My dad grabbed her arm. She pulled away easily, too easily. "It's tired of waiting," she continued. "It says someone has to stay." The walls shifted, not cracking, stretching. My mom screamed. I ran. I don't remember leaving the house. I remember standing in the street, barefoot, watching the lights flicker back on. The house looked normal, quiet. The police found my parents inside. They never found my sister. The house was demolished a year later. Nothing unusual in the walls. No remains. No explanation. But sometimes at night, when my apartment is quiet and the building settles, I hear something familiar. A slow, thoughtful sound. Moving, stopping, listening, and I don't knock back anymore. Because I know what happens when it realizes you're still there. The rule wasn't written anywhere. It didn't need to be. Everyone who lived in the building just knew. You didn't go into the basement after midnight. Not to do laundry. Not to grab storage boxes. Not even if you dropped something and heard it fall down the stairs. Especially not then. I moved into the building in early winter, desperate and broke. It was an old converted hospital. 4 floors, narrow hallways, radiators that hissed like they were trying to speak. The rent was cheap because the landlord didn't advertise. Word of mouth only. Basement access included, he said quickly, like it was an afterthought. I asked why it was so cheap. He shrugged. People don't stay long. The first few weeks were fine. Strange, but fine. At night, the building settled loudly. Pipes knocked. Walls popped. Sometimes I heard footsteps in the hall, long after everyone should have been asleep. But when I checked, the hallway was empty. I assumed insomnia made you paranoid. I learned about the basement rule from an accident. I was carrying groceries up the back stairs one night when I heard a loud metallic clang echo up from below. Something heavy, something dropped. Then came a sound I wasn't prepared for. Crying, low, broken, adult. I leaned over the railing and called down. "Hello?" The crying stopped instantly. A woman's voice answered. Flat, calm, too calm. "Don't come down." I stepped back so fast I nearly fell. The next morning, I asked my neighbor across the hall, a man named Howard who had lived there for decades, if someone lived in the basement. His face went tight. "No," he said. "No one lives there." Then he added, quieter, "After midnight, if you hear something fall, you leave it." I laughed awkwardly. He didn't. That night, I dreamed I was standing at the top of the basement stairs. The door was open, light spilling up from below. I could hear people talking, dozens of voices overlapping, whispering, arguing, pleading. I woke up sweating. The next day, I noticed something new. A smell. It wasn't rot. Not quite. It was iron heavy, damp, like old bandages and wet concrete. It came from the stairwell. Every night, it grew stronger. And every night, right at midnight, the building went quiet. No pipes, no footsteps, no settling, like it was listening. Then, at 12:07 a.m., something began to move below us. Not walking, being dragged, slowly, relentlessly. The sound traveled the length of the basement ceiling, directly beneath the apartments. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, tracking it as it passed under my room. When it stopped directly below me, my chest tightened. I heard breathing, not through the walls, through the floor. The next morning, there was a new notice taped near the mailboxes. Plain paper, typed. Basement access temporarily restricted. Do not enter after 12 a.m. Someone had written underneath in pen. That's when they're still learning. I tried to leave. I really did. But every time I started packing, something happened. My keys went missing. My phone battery drained instantly. My alarm didn't go off. It felt like resistance. Like the building didn't want to be alone. The first tenant disappeared 3 weeks after I moved in. A woman from the 3rd floor. The police said she left voluntarily. Her apartment was clean. Rent paid. No signs of struggle. But her storage unit in the basement was open. Empty. The lock twisted apart like soft metal. I stopped sleeping. I sat awake every night, counting the minutes until midnight, listening as the building went silent and the dragging began. One night, it didn't stop beneath my apartment. It kept going, up the stairs. I heard the basement door open, then footsteps, bare feet on concrete, wet, heavy, ascending. At 12:23, there was a knock on my door. I didn't answer. The knock came again. "Please," a voice whispered. "I don't fit anymore." I clamped my hands over my mouth. Something pressed against the door from the other side. Not a hand. A face. I saw it through the peephole. The skin was pale and stretched too tight. The mouth hung open slightly, jaw trembling. The eyes were unfocused, darting, desperate. It spoke again, teeth chattering. "They keep fixing me," it said. "But I keep changing." The hallway lights flickered. From beneath the door, something dark seeped across the carpet. Blood, mixed with something thicker. The voice sighed. "They said the basement was full." The next knock came from inside my apartment, behind me. I turned slowly. The bathroom door was open. Something stood in the tub, too tall, too many joints, wrapped in bandages that were soaked through, peeling away to reveal swollen, stitched flesh underneath. I could see seams, not surgical, but crude. Different skin tones pulled together badly. A mouth on the neck, whispering to itself. It lifted its head. "Your turn soon," it said kindly. I ran. I don't remember getting out of the building. I remember the cold air, burning my lungs, and sirens somewhere far away. I told the police everything. They went into the basement with lights and cameras. They found rooms, not storage rooms, work rooms. Tables bolted to the floor, tools worn smooth from use, shelves lined with labeled jars, hands, eyes, teeth, and dozens of beds, all empty, except one. A woman lay there, breathing shallowly. She had no legs. Her chest was stitched open and closed again. Her mouth moved constantly. When asked what happened, she whispered, "They're trying to finish something." The building was condemned, demolished. They said nothing was found in the walls, no bodies, no remains, but I know better. Because every night now, just after midnight, I feel the silence come back. I hear something dragging beneath me, learning. And last night, for the first time since I escaped, I heard a voice through the floor. Clear, hopeful. Almost done, it said, and something knocked. From underneath my bed. And remember, stories are just echoes. What you hear depends on how closely you listen.